Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So, the beginning of this episode, I was working on this bracket right here. Which actually, let me grab a flashlight so we can see it a little bit better. But the purpose of this particular bracket is an anti-rotation bracket. So, it ties into the removable portion of the parachute assembly and then goes down to the floor for a nice triangulated deal to hold everything in place. So with this whole parachute assembly being removable and sleeving into the back of the chassis, it gives it the opportunity to rotate around and move around a little bit, and I did not want that. So I made that little bracket, so in order for the parachute mount to rotate, it has to try to take the floor in the hatch area with it, and it would be much less likely to move around that way. So, nice simple little project, not anything too crazy or too complex. And off camera, I also built an offset license plate bracket, as I don't particularly want to cut a hole in the license plate, as it's a nice brand new plate, and I don't know that I'm going to run the parachutes, the whole parachute assembly on the car at all points in time. So I don't want to have a license plate with a hole in it or deal with the government trying to have two of the same plates for the same car. It just sounds like it would end up being a nightmare and something that I don't particularly want to deal with. So I made this bracket to hold the plate over to the side, and I'm just have to put a little bit of foam on the plate so that way as it moves around, it doesn't end up scuffing up the paint on the bumper. So a couple little simple projects to start out, and we're going to do a couple more. So I've been wanting to make some trim panels for a little while now, one of which to go around the exhaust stack for the burn down tank, and the other one to go around the steering column on the inside of the car. Now, both of these holes, they are a little bit abstract in their construction, so I figured I would take the time to pretty them up a little bit, make some simple trim plates, and all would be well, all would be squared away that way. And I'll get to use my fancy new Cleco set as I'm doing this. So let me go ahead, drill a test hole, and then I can show you guys exactly how a Cleco works. So Clecos are pretty cool, and it's essentially a temporary rivet or temporary mock-up rivet. So this kit that I bought comes with two different size Clecos. This brass looking one, I believe, is a 3/16, and this copper one is an 1/8. So if you look, you can see these center tongue tabs. Hopefully it's in focus there, but this tongue is much smaller than this tongue. And like I said, these are meant for an 1/8 inch, the other ones are 3/16, and they're meant for common rivet sizes, at least in the US. So in addition to the Cleco itself, you have Cleco pliers, which the purpose of these is to grab this collar. If you guys can see that right there where my index finger is, one half of the pliers grabs the collar, the other half pushes down on the pin on the back side, and you see that that extends out, allows the whole Cleco assembly to slip through a hole, and then as you release it, these little, I guess, indents or narrower sides to them pull down, and they hold two pieces of material together. So I have these two pieces of aluminum that I drilled 1/8 inch holes into, and if I was doing this, like, this would have been super handy when I was putting the drag wing on the car, but I didn't have them yet, so I made do. But now these two pieces are obviously separate. So if I take the Cleco, I compress it with the pliers, slide it through, and release. Now these two pieces are held in place, at least for the time being, so that way I can go through and drill additional holes or get a rivet started, so on and so forth, and you can work your way sequentially through the piece that you're working on. So to remove it, it's just as easy. You put the pliers back in place, squeeze, remove, and then if this was an actual work piece, this would be riveted together and all would be well and I could move forward. So they're a super handy little tool, and one that I put off buying for much longer than I should have, but in my pursuit of acquiring as many oddball tools and kind of specialty tools as I can, this was pretty high up on the list, and I'm happy to finally have a set for myself. So now that we know how Clecos work, why don't we do a project where we can actually use them? So we're going to start off with building the trim ring for the puke tank or the burn down tank. And this will be pretty simple. I'll take some aluminum from my stash over there, and I will use these two hole saws to make the trim ring itself. So pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. I will first make a hole with the smaller one, then come in with the larger one to make a nice circular trim ring that will go around that and will really class the joint up a bit, as having just this bare hole in the hatch right here that this doesn't fit in the best, not ideal. A little bit more work in the books, and now the burn down tank has a trim ring. So it came out nicely, rivet spaced equidistantly around. I got it roughly centered. It probably isn't perfect, but it'll get the job done, and it looks a whole lot better than just a random tube stub sticking through the carbon fiber. Well, this morning, Dave's car has officially left the building, so we can take it back, start getting it squared away, getting it finished up, and get ready to enjoy it. So that means that I need to get back to work on the Mark IV now. And what I'm going to do first is take all this apart, get just the bare parachute mount by itself, and put it under a coat of paint. So I'll end up getting this powder coated by my buddy Ryan at Late Apex Performance Coatings. But I have a car show to go to this weekend, and I just need to get some sort of paint on it for the time being. All of the Mark IV's components that I was painting are now dried. So we have the offset license plate bracket, we have the anti-rotation bracket for the parachute mount, and then we have the parachute mount itself. So when I get these off of here, I will double check and make sure that where I have everything hung, it didn't cause any portions of it to not be painted. I guess I'm really only worried about these two areas on the parachute mount itself. So I can get all these things pulled off of the rack and begin reinstalling everything. And then in a little bit, my actual parachute release system should be here. And then we can focus efforts on getting that installed. My dual parachute release setup just arrived, and it's sitting here on the table. So this is from Motion Raceworks, and this is their dual parachute release system. So it comes with 2 cables, 2 band clamps to fasten the cables to a roll cage tube or something, although I don't know that I'll necessarily use those. The actual handle itself, complete with provisions for 2 parachutes, these rod ends here, and these 2 clamps. And then, most importantly, they sent out a sucker. So I'm going to eat this sucker as I sit and figure out exactly where I want to mount this handle, and then figure out the rest of this from there. After a little bit of work, I now have the parachute release handle mounted. I made this little mounting plate out of just some Home Depot racing strip stock. It has 3 M6 fasteners that holds it into place, and this thing is really solid in here. So I'm at the point now where I can actually fit the cables to the car, but I wanted to do a quick tech tip slash safety notice for you guys. So when I was welding the motion bracket to the base plate, I noticed that the motion bracket is zinc coated. And you guys may have noticed in the little fabrication montage, when I was welding it, I was wearing my respirator. Now this is very, very, very important whenever you are working with anything that is zinc coated. You do not want to breathe those fumes in. They are not good for you. Can lead to some very adverse health effects and lung issues as time goes on. And the stuff that we do as welder fabricators is already bad enough for us, let alone breathing in toxic fumes. So do your due diligence, wear your respirator. I know it sucks. I know it's hot and sweaty and uncomfortable and all of that. But it's better to feel those things because you are still alive at that point, as opposed to breathing in some toxic, noxious fumes and doing irreversible damage to yourself. So the first thing that you want to do when you are trimming parachute cables, and this could be pretty easily overlooked and you cause yourself a whole bunch of pain, is to retract the actual pull-out ripcord portion of this. So it's really easy. You just go up to the front side, and whether you have the actual release handle attached to it or not, just pull the actual manual deployment side out, so that way you're not under trimming the internal ripcord portion. So from here, it's pretty easy, and really the only specialty tool that you need that makes it handy are a pair of shears, like these vibrant shears, something like that. And I'm also going to come in here and make a mark as to the length that I'm trimming this to. So just so I can keep it uniform between the 2 sides and keep everything copacetic that way. So right about where my thumbnail is here is where the loop on the parachute bag itself is. So I'm going to go back a little bit from there and make a mark. And now I can come in and measure out what the length that I'm trimming off of this is, so that way I can copy it over to the other side. So it looks like I'm taking right about 58 inches off of this. And all that I have to do now is come in with my vibrant shears, snip, 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 maybe. See, this might be a little bit of a pain. Snip, snip. And there, we're flush trimmed off of here. And I can go ahead and extend that cable back out. There you can see that I have my tail sticking off of this. And now I guess I can run this through the loop on the parachute bag. Something like that. And I can trim my excess off of there. So pretty easy, pretty straightforward, and I just have to do the same thing on the other side now, and then all will be well. So now that everything is trimmed, everything is fit, the last thing to do is to test and make sure that when I throw the handle, it actually pulls the ripcords out of these pins on the bag, and then it would actually deploy the parachutes. So I'm going to keep these safety pins in here so that way I'm not actually dumping the chutes out. Not that it's the end of the world to put them back in the bags, but I prefer not to if I don't have to. So if I go up here, grab the handle, push it forward, that's the whole way, and it looks like this passenger side deployed, but the driver side did not. So now what I can do is reset the handle up there. I can put this cable back in its place, measure out the length of exposed wire, trim this one to suit, and try again. Well, I went through and I tested multiple times to make sure that these would actually deploy, and they do. So I feel pretty confident that everything will work, but there's one last step and one last thing that I'm going to do with this. So if you look at the end of the cable, you have the actual ripcord itself, then you have the steel liner underneath of the plastic sheath. So that steel liner can be pretty sharp, and you don't want it to get caught on your bag or anything like that. So Motion sells little caps that go over the top of it, little billet aluminum deals. Those are great. I didn't order them, but I do have vacuum caps, and this is what I did before. So just slide the vacuum cap over the ends like so, and then I'm going to come in with a zip tie for each of them. And I'll position the zip tie so it won't get bound up on anything. Now once I just trim the tails of these zip ties off, these will be good to go, and these rubber boots on the ends will prohibit that steel liner from chewing up your parachute bag. So now that I've verified functionality of the parachute release cables and done all of that, I need to disassemble everything now so I can pull the mounting bracket out. I can paint it, and then once the paint dries, I can reassemble everything. So that's the nature of the beast when you're building stuff like this. And it's kind of unfortunate because everything is assembled right now, and I guess I could just let it go as is, but then I'll end up with a rusty bracket, and that isn't what I'm after. Well, this thing is now all spit shined and ready to go to the show. So I know this video was a little bit jumbled and a little bit all over the place, but I really just had to buckle down and get the things knocked out on this car that needed to be knocked out, and the filming came kind of second, unfortunately. But hopefully you guys still got some value out of this, and I guess we can do a little recap of what all was accomplished. So starting from the back, I got the parachute mount painted, got all that squared away, got the parachute release cables in place. I showed off the offset license plate mount that I made. On the inside, I made a little filler panel going around the steering column, so that way this bit of a hole down here is not as unsightly as it was before. And I also got the parachute release lever put in place. So a whole bunch of little projects and little things knocked out, but those are all very essential to the greater picture and the greater scope of this project. So with all of that being said, I think that's about a wrap on things we're working on with this car and this video. So big progress made on it. I'm very happy with the progress that I did make, and I can't wait to make it to this show and be able to show all the people at the show my handiwork and everything that's gone into this car. So this is the same show that I went to last year that I brought home a trophy that is about as tall as I am. So we'll see if I can do that again this time. If not, it isn't the end of the world, as that really isn't the main goal and the main intent with going there. It's to share time and space with like-minded individuals and a couple of my buddies that will end up going there with me. So can't wait for it, and I'm not sure how much filming that I will do there, but we'll see, and whatever I did film will end up in the next video. So with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So thank you guys, as always, for coming along in all these different journeys with me and everything that is yet to come. I have some big plans and big things to do here this winter. One of the biggest is finally getting this disaster zone organized. And I have all the materials and everything to do that. It's just a matter of getting some of the projects wrapped up here into a point where I can move things around and not have things be in the way or move them 15 times. So beyond that, you'll notice the engine bay on the Mark II isn't shiny anymore. And we'll get into this in the next video and talk about kind of what's going on with this car and what's about to happen with it. And I know that it looks kind of bad right now, but trust me, it's for the greater good, and everything will be really cool and really good when everything is said and done. So with all of that being said, I will stop rambling now and let's wrap this one up. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way, and I will see you all in the next episode.